Hello, thank you very much for being with us. You are watching Amir Shakil 5858 and I am Amir Budnam. Reported by American and Canadian channels and is AFP, AP and Reuters news agencies. Now the headlines. American veterans and homeless in America. Early detection of breast cancer. Palestinian babies separated from their parents. Israeli strikes in central Gaza. American Turkish woman buried. Russia and Ukraine.
Furious over a disappointing jobs report, President Trump fires the government official in charge of the numbers and the urgent manhunts in 2 states for armed and dangerous murder suspects. First, the president taking aim at the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, claiming without providing evidence the data was rigged. Today's jobs report, lower than expected. It comes after the U.S. saw 258,000 fewer jobs created in May and June than previously thought. And President Trump announcing new tariffs on nearly 70 countries, sending the stock market reeling. And news at the Federal Reserve, a top official stepping down. Jonathan Karl standing by. Jeffrey Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, transferred without explanation to a lower security prison camp in Texas. The move follows her 2-day meeting with the Justice Department, Pierre Thomas in Washington. Also tonight, President Trump issuing new warnings to Russia, repositioning 2 U.S. nuclear submarines following threats from a top Russian official. President Trump giving Vladimir Putin 1 more week to negotiate peace with Ukraine or face new sanctions. Martha Raddatz with late reporting. Breaking at this hour, 2 urgent manhunts in 2 separate states underway. Police searching for a gunman who opened fire inside a bar in Montana. At least 4 people killed. A small town on lockdown. And authorities looking for a suspect in Tennessee accused of killing a family of 4. Their baby found abandoned on the front lawn of a home. Tonight, new flash flood threats from Texas to the Carolinas after the Northeast took a pounding. New York City manholes exploding. Subway stations underwater. And Canadian wildfires triggering air quality alerts across multiple states. Overseas, top U.S. officials on the ground in Gaza as the humanitarian crisis worsens. Children starving and need food. In panel in Israel. Here in the U.S., the incredible scene just steps away from the beach. A shark fighting with a stingray. Swimmers getting out of the water. Scary moments at the aquarium. An octopus injuring a 6-year-old boy, clinging onto his arm and not letting go. And America Strong tonight, the special wedding vows touching hearts across the country. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David York.
Hey, only 1 week left here until President Trump's deadline for Russian sanctions go into effect. The president is issuing some pretty sharp criticism of Russia's latest attacks on Ukraine. He spoke to reporters in the Oval Office yesterday. Listen.
I think it's disgusting what they're doing. I think it's disgusting. This is Biden's war. It's not my war. But I said if I get in, I'll try and get the thing stopped. But I think what Russia's doing is very sad.
Steve Yates, AFPI Senior Fellow and Chair of the China Policy Initiative, joins us here now. Steve, good morning to you. I want to play one more soundbite from President Trump, if I can, because he's talking about these sanctions that we've all been talking about for a while. Will they go into effect? He's getting closer to it, but even he is acknowledging that they might not work. Listen.
Yeah, we're going to put sanctions. I don't know that sanctions bother him. You know, they know about sanctions. I know better than anybody about sanctions and tariffs and everything else. I don't know if that has any effect, but we're going to do it. Europe is extremely upset, but this is a war that should have never happened. This is a war that wouldn't have happened if I were president.
So where does that leave our leverage?
Well, obviously, the president's justified in being frustrated. I mean, he's kept good faith with all parties in this. He was very clear as a bell what his intentions were: stop the killing, pursue an alternative path to peace and prosperity, talk to Russia, Ukraine, allies, and at this point, Putin is not reciprocating. There really aren't that many options under the current circumstances other than trying to affect access to financial and energy markets. That's what he's hinting towards. Europe and others need to go along. It sounds like they may. But this is basically the clear frustration of a president who's trying to pursue peace, but with big powers that aren't sharing that vision.
Yeah, and Russia is responding with threats of their own. I mean, basically saying to Trump, if you keep playing these games, these war games with the 50 days, the 10 days, that, you know, they're they're talking about a war, and not with Ukraine, but with our country. I do think this was an interesting op-ed from the Wall Street Journal here, talking about what Trump might be trying to accomplish here, sort of mimicking what Richard Nixon did. Mr. Trump has long admired the way Richard Nixon exploited Russia-China tensions to end China's isolation during the Cold War. And one reason he has said he wants to settle the Ukraine conflict is that he thinks it drove Russia and China closer together. Breaking up this axis could possibly drive Russia to the bargaining table with Ukraine. I think a lot of people would agree, but how might the president expedite that situation?
Trump's new tariffs this Friday night. The turmoil across Canada, where trade talks stand.
Our Prime Minister has been working very diligently on this particular file.
What Canada is being advised not to do, and how companies are trying to soften the blow. U.S. officials visit Gaza, what they're trying to accomplish, and what starving residents want them to know. Celebrating Emancipation Day, how far we have come, and that we still need to continue to evolve. Marking nearly 2 centuries since slavery ended in Canada. Plus, boy oh boy, why this bundle of joy is being called the world's oldest baby.
Global National reporting tonight.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Governments and markets around the world are taking stock today after the passing of Donald Trump's deadline to impose new tariffs on trade. Dozens of countries are affected, but at 35%, the levy on some Canadian goods are among the highest. We'll hear from the Canadians on the front lines of Trump's tariff war in a moment, but we begin with Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa with a muted response from the federal government.
Tight Minister do the talking. Mark. Rates to 30 U.S. tariff. Government is focused on what we can control. Most other cabinet ministers not talking, but those who were showing confidence in Carney.
He's fully aware of some of the challenges as it relates to our relationship with the U.S.
Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc trying to mend that relationship, meeting with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick this week. But in the end, it's Trump who makes the final call.
He's just determined that he's going to take on Canada. I don't know the exact reasons. He uses different excuses, most of which are patently false.
The latest excuse, our fentanyl, despite U.S. numbers showing that less than 1% of the drug going to the States comes from government.
Now, but you're fired. But he Russia sarcastically referencing the Walking Dead and the Cold War era dead hand nuclear system. This isn't the first clash between the two. Earlier this month, Medvedev dismissed Trump's ultimatums, warning that pressure on Moscow risks conflict not with Ukraine, but with America itself.
The US has put new tariffs on 20 African countries. Trump signed the sweeping executive order on Thursday, will take effect 7 days. Most African countries received a rebate compared to tariffs that had announced in April. Lesotho avoided a disaster with a 15% tariff rate down from 50% just 3 months earlier. Other countries were less fortunate. Algeria, Libya and South Africa round out the top 3 African facing the tariff rate days in. South Africa said on Friday that it would take action to support exporters hit by US tariffs, which is expected to trigger widespread job loss in the nation's automotive and agriculture industries. Many countries outside Africa were targeted by Trump's new tariff policy, with Laos, Myanmar and Syria all receiving rates over 40%. The White House said it would establish an additional penalty on exporters that attempted to circumvent tariffs, shipping goods from a high-tariff country to a low-tariff country for the United States.
Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda are set to make history on Saturday when the Confederation of African Football Championship, or CHAN, kicks off in Dar es Salaam. The 19-team competition is the first to be jointly hosted by three countries, defending champions against African Ross Nigeria Aman Stadium. Hosts Uganda are up against Algeria, Guinea, Niger and South Africa in Group C. Hoping to break this time around. Group A features two-time champions Morocco as well as Kenya, Angola, Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Only players from domestic clubs can compete at CHAN and teams can't include anyone playing for teams abroad. The CHAN tournament, which runs to August 30th, is a precursor to the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027, also co-hosted by the three countries.
Tonight, breaking news. Jeffrey Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell just moved to a minimum security federal prison just a week after meeting with Trump's deputy attorney general. Woman convicted of trafficking. Epstein stop the violation of the Bureau of Prison Guidelines. So why parental treatment? Their victims do not matter. Trump has been calling that absurd. Also breaking tonight, President Trump firing a top labor official after a worse-than-expected jobs report, dropping as inflation rises. The president offering 2 nuclear subs to reposition after a threat from Russia. Andrea Mitchell standing by with the latest reporting. This just in, the landmark judgment against Tesla. $243 million after a pedestrian was killed while a driver said he was using the car on autopilot. The manhunt in Montana, a gunman killing 4 people inside of a bar in the middle of the day. The takedown of that elementary school teacher who police say confessed to killing a married couple on an Arkansas trail with their kids. One led investigators to that barbershop. The cost of denial, they lost their homes in the California wildfires. So why is there demanding balloon payments after saying they wouldn't? And the scare inside an aquarium when an octopus latches onto a 6-year-old boy. The terrifying marks on his arm. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Thomas.
Trump's nuclear threat.
Yes, the US president deploys nuclear science to order in response to the country's former president, Medvedev.
Well, Russia reminded Washington Moscow still has Soviet-era nuclear strike capabilities following the US president talking tough on Ukraine. President Trump says that's a threat to be ignored.
We just have to be careful. And a threat was made, and we didn't think it was appropriate, so I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people.
1 million NHS free passes covering everything from prescriptions to dental work have apparently been handed to seekers in 5 years. But with British families struggling to get appointments, you could ask, who is the NHS really for?
Jeremy Clark tuberculosis has struck his farm, leaving his team devastated. But is enough being done to tackle TB in rural Britain?
It's all see. It's all about culture and tradition, Ulster Scots traditions, dancing, singing. It looks like it's going to be a great weekend. Portofarious Sea Shanty Festival returns with 4 packed days of folk tunes and boat races and pirate fun on Loch.
Good morning. The first ever clean sweep in Australia is on for the British and Irish Lions as they target history in Sydney. And Newcastle
Russell, Alexander Isak sparks fury among fans and locals that set to pull away from a £110 million deal.
Storm Flores is expected to cause disruptive winds on Monday for many parts of the UK, but before that happens, actually, it's a pretty decent start to the weekend. Full details coming up soon.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. Hello, very good morning. It's 6 o'clock. Coming up on the Breakfast Show today, a year on from the riots in Southport, we see how they were fuelled by online disinformation. And the British and Irish Lions could complete a historic clean sweep when they take on Australia in the final test of the series this morning. It's Saturday, the 2nd of August. We return to the scene of from the residents still traumatised.
I think it probably could happen again.
Yeah.
That's the faith I have. It could really.
Donald Trump orders 2 nuclear submarines to be deployed closer to Russia after a perceived threat from a former president. As French performers battle to be noticed, we see how this year they're facing unparalleled competition from Oasis.
And Tottenham Hotspur captain Heung-min Son has the plan to leave after a decade in North London.
Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining here on Breakfast. In the days after
This is news and top story. U.S. President Donald Trump said he had ordered 2 submarines highly provocative comments made by Russia's former president. Trump signed an executive order and you to levy from 14 from trading with Palestine West while Israelis against Palestinians and the ongoing war in Gaza. Earlier, Badaful held talks with senior Israeli politicians on reviving a ceasefire with Hamas and letting Israel diplomatically isolated. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find more on our website at dw.com.
Hello, this is Daybreak here on France 24. I'm Yukoya Tade. The headlines. An online war of words between US President Donald Trump and Russian ex-President Dmitry Medvedev comes to a head, and Trump announcing that 2 nuclear submarines will now answer on the Ukraine. It will be an air drop, which is US President Donald Trump fires the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, accusing her of rigging job figures to damage Republicans, just hours after a report showed that hiring slowed down in the country.
Tuesday 8:30 on ABC TV and ABC iView. Partnership Garma promising a new approach to
make the advice, but not a substitute for house.
voting and to take place among Aussie TV royalty in the Logies Hall of Fame. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Lorna Dunkley. The Prime Minister has unveiled a new First Nations economic partnership around 25th Garma Festival in northeast Arnhem Land. The deal is a collaboration between the federal government and the First Nations Economic Empowerment Coalition of Geeks, aimed at creating jobs and boosting skills and education. As it says, here's going to be a new song. Good afternoon, I'm Yasmin Yonkers with your headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump orders 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in what he describes as appropriate regions after fiery words fly between Washington and Moscow. Dozens of trade partners plunged into a fresh race to secure deals with the US after the 7th deadline for duties to take effect opens the door for further talks. And Japan braces for more scorching heat after last month's record-breaking 14.2 degrees Celsius temperatures. The weather agency warns August could bring even worse weather as the intensifies. And that are your latest home to CNN News.
At CNN.Asia.
This is Asia Now.
Hello and good afternoon. It is 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi, 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump orders 2 new regions after 3 words from Washington and Moscow. Dozens of trade partners plunged into a fresh race deals with the U.S. Trump's new tariffs will take effect. And Cambodia back when the soldiers from Canada as a simmer. Both countries are gearing up for defense talks next week aimed at maintaining a ceasefire.
A gloomy jobs report. After she says fewer Americans were hired, the president orders her fired.
I believe the numbers were phony, just like they were before the election. And there were other times. So you know what I did? I fired her.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. Is off tonight. The president's trade policies are taking a heavy toll on the labor market. The uncertainty caused by his on-again, off-again, up-again, down-again tariffs has employers cutting back dramatically on their hiring. They created just 73,000 jobs in July. Even worse, the numbers for May and June were revised downward today sharply. So, over 3 months, as the tariff wars escalated, the U.S. economy created only 106,000 jobs. The president himself created 1 job today at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. He ordered the firing of the head of the agency behind the bad jobs report, which also includes the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.2%. He accused Erica McIntyre, without evidence, of cooking to help Kamala Harris before the and to him now.
Before the numbers that came out, I said, who is the person that does these numbers? And then they gave me stats about before the election. That's a problem. I mean, she gave out numbers that were so good for the Democrats. It was like unbelievable.
And O'Keefe is at the White House, but we begin right here with CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, you talked to one of the consumers of these numbers today.
I did. So the Federal Reserve looks at the jobs report.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Palestinian officials in Gaza report Israeli attacks have killed at least 17 people so far today, including 7 people seeking aid near a distribution point south of Khan Yunis. The attacks came as medics and at least 2 more Palestinians have died of starvation over the last 24 hours, as the triple of Gaza fails to meet the needs of more than 2 million hungry Palestinians who searched for Thursday at a community kitchen in Gaza City said they came away empty-handed.
There is no water, no food, no bread, and what forces us to come here is more humiliating than anything. In the end, we return with nothing. Either we come back burned by the sun or we're trampled underfoot because of the overcrowding. We return empty-handed.
We call on all free people of the world and peace lovers to help us provide food and water until this famine imposed on us by the occupation ends. What the occupation allows in terms of truck entries does not equal a drop in the ocean.
As Gaza's starvation deaths continue to mount, President Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee toured an aid distribution site in Gaza run by the shadowy U.S. and Israeli-backed so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. According to the UN, at least 1,373 Palestinians have been killed while trying to access food since Israel barred the United Nations and NGOs from distributing aid in Gaza. The majority of those killed were at GHF sites. Witkoff's trip to Gaza comes one day after he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. Outside the Prime Minister's office, families of Israelis held hostage by Hamas rallied in protest to demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Meanwhile, anti-war Israelis held a protest outside a military recruitment center in Ramat Gan in support of two 18-year-old draft resistors who announced they would refuse to enlist in Israel's army. Ayana Gersman was sentenced to 30 days in a military prison for her refusal. Yuval Peleg received a 20-day sentence.
I can't be a part of the war in Gaza, of the misery and suffer caused to so many people.
I'm here to refuse the genocide, first and foremost, to refuse to participate and to be complicit in genocide.
Palestinian citizens of Israel have been holding daily protests, banging pots and pans to protest Israel's starvation campaign in Gaza. On July 5th, over 10...
Good evening, I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Navaz. On the NewsHour tonight, President Trump fires a labor statistics official after a lower-than-expected jobs report and unveils yet another list of global tariffs.
A former security contractor for a U.S.-backed aid group in Gaza gives his first-hand account of chaos in getting aid to Palestinians.
After 25 years of service in the United States Army, I hung up my uniform, but I did not hang up my oath. What we were doing
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.